Have you ever noticed that whenever you imagine something, it sometimes ends up happening? It might surprise you. But in this video, I'll be explaining the mystery behind why your thoughts hold so much power and why you need to be very careful of the way you think. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. Many people, including yourself, might have probably experienced moments where you kept thinking about something, and all of a sudden that thing happened, whether they were good or bad. Let me give you an example. You know those people who always seem to find something negative to think about, no matter how good their lives are. You might be the type of person who always imagines yourself failing an exam, and just as you had imagined it, you actually end up failing in real life. Or you might have discovered that every time you want to go for a job interview, you always imagine yourself being rejected for the job. And strangely enough, those same thoughts seem to turn into reality. It's almost as if by simply imagining these scenarios, they start to manifest in the physical world. Here's the problem. In the spiritual realm, it's not just your words or prayers that have an impact on bringing things into existence. No, your thoughts are also just as powerful as your words, whether they're positive or negative. And believe me when I say this. Fear and faith are both laws of the spirit. They work on the same principle. Whatever you believe and conceive becomes a reality. If you are always afraid of something, you are in essence calling that thing into existence. Jesus said all things are possible to him who believes. As a Christian, there is a certain level in your spiritual journey with God, such that your thoughts start becoming as powerful as prayers. That is, you get to a certain level where just a mere thought from you becomes a reality. This is because your thoughts are also prophetic by nature. Always bear in mind that you have been anointed by God, and so you're not just anybody. Sometimes, it's not just about work. It can also be about your health. Maybe you're the type of person who occasionally catches a little cold or gets the flu, but then you start worrying and imagining the worst. You even go as far as imagining the doctor giving you some really bad report about your health. And guess what? Just as you imagined, the doctor ends up giving you exactly the same negative report you had imagined. So even when the illness wasn't actually serious, your negative thoughts in the spiritual realm amplified it into a major sickness. Now, the interesting thing is that you might not even mention any of this out loud. You might not voice these thoughts, but just by thinking about them, they become a reality. This is why many believers continue to struggle, not because the devil is keeping them in bondage, but because they've trapped themselves in the prison of their own thoughts. They are always very negative. If something little just happens, they will start thinking about all the negative things you can imagine. They will start thinking about losing their jobs, thinking about losing their marriage, thinking about losing their children. And they don't realize that the reason they are experiencing a lot of negative things in their lives is because of these thoughts. They might not even say it out, but because of their constant negative way of thinking, those same things they've been avoiding come to pass. The Bible tells us that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This means there are certain things that might have happened in your life that were a direct result of your way of thinking. And this is where many Christians get into trouble. They don't realize that their thoughts also act like prayers. And guess what? When the devil discovers that you're the type of person who is very negative in your way of thinking, he will make it his duty to always make sure that he keeps planting negative thoughts into your mind. This way, you will become your own worst enemy through your negative thinking. He understands the power of self-destruction through negative imagination, and so the only thing he'll keep doing is to make sure he continues to sow seeds of negativity in your mind. This way, every time you imagine something negative, it will come to pass. This saves him time, energy, and resources. All he needs to do is to just plant the negative thoughts about yourself whenever God is about to bless you. So when he sees you have a job interview, he will simply plant thoughts of negativity in your mind. Then you will begin to envision the manager turning you down for the job, or you'll find yourself thinking of being told you're not qualified. The more you start meditating on this, the more likely it will begin to materialize. Not because you were not qualified for the job, but because your thoughts began to create barriers in the spirit realm that made it impossible for you to get that job. Remember, I said your thoughts are like prayers, whether positive or negative. The Bible, specifically in the book of Job in chapter 3 verse 25, talks about an important lesson. Job himself said, "The thing I feared the most has come upon me." This means that everything Job went through was a result of his fears and worries. It's a common pattern that many people find themselves in bondage because they have a negative mindset. Even when things seem fine and positive, they always manage to find something to think negatively about. They're constantly afraid and worry that something bad might happen, even when there's no clear threat. You might see them attending church, listening to the pastor's sermon about the great things the Lord is about to do. But the moment they step out of the church, their minds start dwelling on all the negative possibilities. They think about their marriage falling apart, their spouse leaving them, or their children getting involved in crime. And just a few months later, they find themselves stuck in those very situations. Then they begin to complain and say God doesn't care about them, whereas God did nothing wrong to them. It was simply because their thoughts became a prayer. Do you remember the story in the Bible about Jesus and his disciples? They came up to him one time and asked, "Master, should we do what Elijah did and call down fire from heaven?" Well, Jesus wasn't too thrilled about that idea. He turned to them and gave them a stern warning, saying, "You have no idea what kind of spirit you are of." You see, Jesus understood that his disciples had some serious power. They were anointed by the Holy Spirit, so whatever they said or even thought about had the potential to happen. That's why, as a child of God, you should be very careful. The closer you are to God, the more careful you should be, especially with your thoughts. It's time to get rid of those negative thoughts and shift your mindset to a more positive one. Why? Because your thoughts are also like prayers. They're prophetic by nature, and they work hand in hand with your imagination. If you're dealing with illness or going to the hospital, try not to dwell on the possibility of things going wrong. Whenever you start imagining that a doctor might deliver bad news about the seriousness of your condition, quickly switch your thoughts to him telling you that it's nothing serious. Similarly, if you're married, avoid constantly imagining that your spouse might one day cheat. The more you entertain these negative thoughts, the more likely they will manifest and affect your relationship. If you continue thinking about the possibility of quarreling with your spouse, it will get to a certain stage where even if your husband is in a good mood, your imagination will actually make him come home and pick up a fight with you. So if your manager reaches out and invites you for a meeting, now instead of automatically jumping to the worst-case scenario and thinking, "Oh no, I'm going to get fired," try shifting your mindset to a more positive outlook. Consider the possibility of a promotion or some other exciting outcome. Swap out negativity for optimism and see how it completely transforms your perspective. As you practice this mindset shift, something miraculous will happen. Your thoughts will get to a realm where instead of bad things happening, they will manifest into positivity. So when you sit down and envision yourself becoming wealthy, God will respond by bringing abundance into your life. Similarly, when you imagine your children being healthy and happy, your prayers are answered. That's why the Bible urges us in Philippians chapter 4 verse 8, "Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report. If there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things." Notice that it urges you to think about these things. Joshua chapter 1 verse 8 also says, "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success." So there you have it. Thank you for watching. If you love our videos, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel.